Pastrana is expected to enter the 2023 Daytona 500 with 2311 Racing, and Kyle Busch has more new sponsors for 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start by talking about Chicago Pneumatic, as it was announced on Friday that Chicago Pneumatic will continue sponsoring Front Row Motorsports in 2023. They will sponsor Michael Liddell at the Coke 600 and the Chicago Street Course race, and they will sponsor Todd Gillen at Michigan. Great to see another company returning to Front Row Motorsports. Freight Auctions is returning to the team this upcoming season. There's a lot of companies returning to that team, so great to see Chicago Pneumatic returning to the team, and good to see sponsors staying in the sport. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Ashton Torgenson. Now, if you watched the Chili Bowl Nationals a couple nights ago on Wednesday, there was a very scary crash and a very scary accident where, unfortunately, Ashton Torgenson had a really scary accident. The good news is that he has been released from the hospital and was speaking to the media and was speaking to people here a couple days ago on Saturday. It is absolutely incredible to see him back at the racetrack a couple days after his really bad accident. So, very happy to see that for sure. What happened was really scary and really concerning. So, glad to see him back at a racetrack. You don't want to see anybody get seriously hurt. And like I said, I'm very happy to see that he's been released from the hospital and is back at the racetrack. Really great to see. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 2023 Drive for Diversity class, as the 2023 Drive for Diversity class has been officially revealed, and there are 7 people who are part of this class. Andres Presti-Lara, LeVar Scott, Justin Campbell, Jaden Reyna, Caleb Johnson, Nathan Lyons, and Eloy Falcon will be the 7 drivers who will be part of the Drive for Diversity class. Huge congratulations to all these people who are part of that Drive for Diversity class, as the class has been around for a very long time. Multiple of these drivers, I think Andres Perez-Hilaire is going to make multiple starts of Rev Racing in ARCA, and also LeVar Scott is going to run a majority of the season with Rev Racing in ARCA this season as well. Huge congratulations to all these drivers who were able to get part of this year's Drive for Diversity class. This class has been really incredible, and very happy to see that all these people are part of this year's Drive for Diversity class. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about tire tests. As in the next couple weeks, there are going to be some upcoming tire tests with the next-gen car. Today and tomorrow, there is going to be a test that's taking place at Circuit of the Americas. The 3 drivers will be at this test are Tyler Reddick, who of course will be in the Toyota, Austin Rick will be in the Ford, and Kyle Busch in the Chevy. From what I understand, I think they're going to be testing some of the new components of the next-gen car with the road course package and such. I think that's what they're going to be testing. But there's not the only test that's going to be happening before the season begins. Next weekend on January 24th and 25th at Phoenix, there will be tests with multiple different people. Ross Chastain, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell, Joe Logano, Eric Jones, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will all be part of that test. Now, one thing you know is that Jimmy Johnson also is going to be able to test the next-gen car as well with the Elite testing at Phoenix, and will basically run at his own testing schedule. Very similar to what Kimi Räikkönen did. He will be on his own testing schedule. I think this is really great to see that we have these tire tests coming up. There really hasn't been much testing this offseason compared to last year, because they were testing the next-gen car coming in. There are some other tests coming up throughout the year. There's one test coming up at Lancaster. I know there's one's going to be happening at Worldwide Technology Raceway in 2023. But these are the upcoming tests that are going to be going on. To be honest, it's really great to see you've got more tests happening, and we get to see more testing in the long-term future, because I think testing, in my opinion, is really great for the sport. I know they've been trying to save the teams a lot of money, but I would love to see more testing long-term, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Christian Rose. As Christian Rose will be driving for AM Racing at ARCA full-time in 2023, driving the number 32 car. In addition to that, he will be making select Truck Series starts with AM Racing in 2023. Now, one thing, though, is that it's unclear if it'll be in a second truck or the main 22 truck, because last year, AM Racing did run 2 trucks. They ran a number 37 truck, and they also ran a number 22 truck, which Austin himself drove a lot of the year, though. We also saw Brett Moffitt make starts for the team. I wouldn't be surprised if Brett also makes starts in the Truck Series for AM Racing as well. Christian's been around the block for the last couple of years, so it's great to see he's getting an opportunity with AM Racing and going full-time. He hasn't had the greatest performances, but I think he does deserve this opportunity, and I'm wishing him the best of luck going into this season in ARCA. I hope he has a really good season because I think it'd be really good for the sport if he can do a good job, and hopefully he'll do a really good job and do an awesome job this year with AM Racing and ARCA and in the Select Truck Series starts that he's able to race. And now we're going to ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Harmon Racing. As it was announced on this past weekend on Friday that Mike Harmon Racing is going to be rebranding in 2023. Instead of being called Mike Harmon Racing, they're going to be called CHK Racing, which they got some new owners coming into the team this year, Gary Keller, and I think Michael Clayton Sr. is also going to be part of that team as well. In addition to that, the number 74 car is going to be returning full-time in 2023. The number 74 car, which has been with the team for many, many years, did not run the full season. They missed a ton of the year due to basically having issues qualifying. So it's great to see you've got Gary Keller coming in. He's going to help with sponsorship and funding. It's great to see that they're going to have the 74 car running full-time. I'm not sure if this means they're only going to have one car this year or we'll have a chance of seeing a second car. That's one thing to watch going into this year. The other big question is who will drive for the team. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if Ryan Vargas gets an opportunity to drive for this team full-time, considering he does have some sponsorship funding backing him going into this season, so if he's able to drive, because Ryan is still available going into the 2023 season. So maybe Ryan Vargas, he gets an opportunity to drive. Who knows at this point, but Mike Harmon Racing will brand going this season. We're wishing him the best of luck, and I'm happy to see that he will get an opportunity. That we'll see opportunity like Harmon Racing to be a team that's once again full-time in the series in 2023. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Emerling Gase Motorsports. Now, Chris and I put out a tweet this past weekend during the ARCA test that was going on, where basically they're going to run select races in ARCA this year with, I think, some Tricon stuff. They're going to run Daytona and Talladega as well. In addition to that, they are still planning to be a two-car team and two full-time entries in 2023. I don't believe there's been any drivers currently announced at this point for the team. Of course, I believe they're switching over to Ford this season, so they'll have the 35 car and the 53 car full-time. The big question is who are the drivers going to be? I would anticipate that we're going to see Joey Gase probably, because of course he's one of the owners of the team. I would think that Joey Gase is probably going to potentially go full-time with the team this year. I wouldn't be surprised if also Shane Lee goes full-time, since Shane Lee's driven for the team in the past and drove for the team in select races this past year in 2022. I would have to think that there's a good chance that he is going to drive that car at some point in 2023. Maybe he'll drive full-time, or we will see multiple drivers drive that car. Who knows at this particular point, but it's great to see that Emerling Gase will have two full-time cars this season, and glad to see that they are expanding to a two-car operation in 2023. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about tire penalties. Now, Bozy Tatareva put up a really good article this past weekend and a really good tweet talking about tire penalties. Tire penalties have been a massive part of the conversation since the next-gen car came in. And according to what he's heard, it sounds like there's going to be some changes coming to the rules. So the tire penalties for the pit crew members, it sounds like it's going to be dropping from 4 races to 2 races. In addition to that, crew chiefs are not expected anymore to be suspended for loose wheels on the cars, and instead they will only be handed like in-race penalties, very similar to what they do with like what they used to do for lug nuts, that they'll be getting basically only like fines and stuff. This is a really good decision if this ends up coming true, and I trust Bozy, so I think this is going to end up coming true. This needs to happen 100%, and this needs to be reduced. I had major problems this year with the fact that a crew chief got suspended for 4 races when he wasn't the one making the things on the cars. He wasn't the one basically working on the car for the tires and stuff on pit road. So why would the crew chief get suspended? I didn't really understand that. So I'm really glad that they are going to be changing that rule going into this year. Also, 2-race suspension for the pit crews, that's also something that needed to change, and I'm glad that's changed going into this year. I think 100% crew chief should not be suspended, and it should be down to 2 races. I've said that really since the beginning of last year, that it should be only 2 races. I wish they would have done that for 2022, but I'm glad they're doing it now. It's better to do it late than never, and I'm glad they're making these changes. I think this is a good decision from NASCAR. I'm very happy to see that they are doing this because I think this is overall a pretty good decision, and I'm happy that they're making these changes, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Wiz Khalifa. is it was announced during one of the NFL playoff games that Wiz Khalifa is going to perform the halftime show at the 2023 Busch Light Clash. This is an absolute big pickup in my opinion. Of course, I believe Cypress Hill is going to be performing before the Clash even begins, the main event it begins. And now you've got Wiz Khalifa joining the event and joining the show to be part of the halftime show. This is something that NASCAR has been needing is more relevant artists. Don't get me wrong, last year they had Ice Cube and Pitbull, but they were not the most relevant artists. You know what I mean? Pitbull was still somewhat relevant. He had kind of a big hit this past year, but Ice Cube hasn't had big hits in a while. And Cypress Hill also hasn't had really big hits. But Wiz Khalifa, going back to him being on the halftime show. Wiz Khalifa had some big hits only about 5 years ago of Sucker for Pain, also part of See You Again, Black and Yellow, a lot of legendary songs. I'm a huge fan of Wiz Khalifa's, and I'm glad that he's going to be part of the halftime show, and I think that's really great that they're doing that. And one thing I would love to see going forward is I would love for them to continue doing this, changing up the genres and stuff, because don't get me wrong, I love country music. I'm a country music fan myself. But I think you've got to bring in some of more artists that are kind of more popular and not just country artists that kind of were popular years ago or just country artists. You've got to bring people in that are pretty hip. Bring people in like Post Malone. If you could bring Post Malone in for like a NASCAR race, that would be really, really awesome. But I'm glad they're bringing Wiz Khalifa in. This is a really good start in the right direction on that front. And I'm very happy to say that Wiz Khalifa will perform at the 2023 Busch Light Clash. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Takuma Sato. Now, Kelly Crandall put out a tweet this past Friday about something on the morning drive. And Rick Ware says on the morning drive that doing the double is an interest and a discuss at Rick Ware Racing. It all depends on about the engine program. So one of the issues with IndyCar right now is something with the engine program issues. They're only allowing a certain amount of engines for each manufacturer. I think for Honda, it's 18 engines. I think for Chevy, I think they're only allowing about 16 or 17 engines. I could be wrong on that, but I think those are the number of engines they're allowing. If they're able to do that, there's a big possibility. Also noted in this tweet is that Takuma Sato could get some seat time and could have an opportunity to make some select NASCAR starts and could also make a start in this year's upcoming Indy 500 and do the double. We're going to talk about another driver who's going to be doing double next year. But Takuma Sato doing the double, I didn't know if that was even going to happen, to be honest with you, is even a possibility. Takuma Sato, for those of you who don't know who are not IndyCar fans, Takuma Sato has won the Indy 500 twice, back in 2017 and 2020. Could you imagine Takuma Sato getting an opportunity to race in NASCAR? That would be absolutely huge for the sport and absolutely incredible. And we've been seeing more drivers from IndyCar come into the world of NASCAR. You think about drivers like, I don't know, Santino Ferrucci. Santino Ferrucci has shown some interest, and he's talking about maybe coming back to NASCAR in the not-so-distant future. He raced just this past year, if I'm not mistaken. You think about other drivers. Julio Castroneves, he's in talking conversations right now to run some races with either the Money Team or Trackhouse Racing. Marcus Ericsson, he's shown interest in racing in NASCAR. Joseph Newgarden, he's shown interest in NASCAR. It's really good that we're continuing to see crossover, and I think the next-gen car is playing a major role and a major factor into why we're seeing more crossover in this sport. And I hope we continue to see this crossover because I think it will be really good for the sport if there is continued crossover like this. And I really do hope that there's a chance that we do get to see Takuma Sato race in NASCAR and maybe run the double. Because I don't think he's going to have a chance to win because Rico Racing's program, no disrespect to them, they're not the fastest program in the world. I think they're going to show big improvement this year, but they're not the fastest program in the world, in my honest opinion. That being said, though, I think it would be really good for the sport if Takuma Sato can come in and race. I hope it does happen, and we'll see if he does get an opportunity to race in NASCAR and maybe do the double in 2023. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Larson. Now, we obviously talked about this on the channel this past weekend, but Kyle Larson is going to be running the 2024 Indianapolis 500 and will be doing the double. He'll be driving, of course, Hendrick Motorsports' number 5 car in the Cup Series and will also be driving for Aaron McLaren's number 5 entry in 2024 with HendrickCars.com. And Hendrick Motorsports will also have an affiliation with that, of course, HendrickCars.com, but also be an owner of that car as well. And there was an article that came out, I think, on Saturday talking about that they are planning some pretty intense preparation for Kyle Larson. The plan is, from what I understand, is that they are going to be basically testing, doing a lot of testing, and there's some testing that could be done as early as 2023. I would not be shocked or surprised if we do end up seeing Kyle Larson test an IndyCar and maybe go to the Indy test in 2023. Kurt Busch did that in 2013 because he ran the 2014 Indy 500 with Andretti Autosport. In 2013, Kurt Busch did a test with, I think, during the Indy test, and also was on the track by himself, I believe, at the time at one point as well. That's something that Aaron McLaren is going to probably end up doing with Kyle Larson, because they want to get Kyle Larson prepared, and they want him in really good shape for the event. You think about Kyle Larson running this event, though. This is absolutely huge, in my opinion, for IndyCar. And a lot of people wanted Kyle Larson to run the Indy 500. There was a chance he could have done it this year, but of course Tony Kanaan is driving the car that he was supposed to run this year. I think Kyle Larson does have a really good chance if he gets enough preparation. I know it sounds crazy, but he could be the first person to not only run the double, but also, well, not the first person to run. There's been 5 other drivers done it. He could be the first person that's done the double that's actually won the double. I could see him win the Indy 500. If he gets the right preparation, he's set and ready to go. Kyle Larson, in my opinion, has a really good chance to win this year's Indianapolis 500. And if he's able to win the Indy 500 this year, just imagine. That will be huge for the racing world in general. Because Kyle Larson, in my opinion, is one of the best drivers in North America. And I think this would be a really good way to prove that he is one of the best drivers in North America and in the world as well. And I think regardless of what ends up happening, it's going to be huge for the sport regardless. And we'll see what happens. But man, Kyle Larson winning the 500, I think, is going to be huge, and they're going to get some intense preparation. They're going to prepare him. They're not just playing it, basically saying, oh, this is going to be a one-time thing. Maybe we'll see him run an IndyCar race this year. Who knows at this point, but we'll see what ends up happening, and we'll see if Kyle Larson can win the Indy 500 in 2024. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tyler Ankrum. As it was announced on Friday morning that Tyler Ankrum is going to be returning to Hattori Racing in 2023, driving the number 16 truck. I believe he'll have a new crew chief this year, though, because Doug Randolph is going to crew chief for him in 2023. Let's be honest, this is not a shocker surprise. Liuna, who's been a sponsor of Tyler Ankrum's, I think, since 2020. They have been sponsored for the last 3 years, so it's not a surprise that he's returning to the team, especially since he does have sponsorship and funding, and that's a big factor in returning to the team if you've got sponsorship and funding. Here's the thing, though. I'm going to be honest about Tyler Ankrum. Tyler Ankrum is a decent driver and an okay driver, in my opinion, but he's not the best driver in the world. He's not a driver that you kind of expect to really set the world on fire. I really thought when he went to GMS in 2020, because you have to remember 2019, he drove for DGR and got that win in Kentucky, and he got on a lot of people's radars. Unfortunately, though, Tyler Ankrum did go to GMS and wasn't really the greatest driver in the world. Then in 2021 was kind of a little bit off as well. And this past year in 2022, he did have some good runs from time to time, but he did also really just miss the playoffs. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make the playoffs in 2023. We're just going to have to wait and see, because I think there is some good competition. Of course, you're not going to have Chandler Smith. You're not going to have John Hunter Nemechek, but he's going to be expected to step up a little bit. And I do think he'll have a chance to step up. I think he will do somewhat better this year, because I think the trucks will be a little bit better for him. But he's going to have to step it up this year. He's going to have to really step it up to the plate. We also remember Tyler Ankrum is only going this year at the beginning of the year. I believe he's only 21 years old. So he's still a young enough driver where he can improve and really show his stuff. But man, I really hope going into the 2023 season that he can really step up to the plate. I think the goal is absolutely to make the playoffs, and I really would love to see them go out and win. Another big question is what's going on with the second truck. Apparently, according to Casey Campbell, apparently that they're still talking. There could be an announcement very, very soon on that second truck, but who knows at this point. Announcement could be coming in the future, because it's unclear if there's only going to be one truck this year with Hattori Racing, or if there's going to be two trucks this year with Hattori. If they downsize to one truck, that would make a lot of sense, because that could mean that Tyler Ankrum could run a lot better than what he's basically done. I really hope, though, Tyler Ankrum can show some major improvement, because in all honesty, he really is going to need to show some big improvement going into the year, and let's see what happens. But I really hope going into the 2023 season he can win a race maybe. That would be really, really cool. That would be a great goal for them, is to win. I don't know if they'll win a race, but I think the goal should ultimately be to make the playoffs. Or you don't have Chandler Smith, you don't have John Hunter Nemechek this year, so hopefully they can make the playoffs. Hopefully he can do that, and we'll see going into 2023. Hopefully we'll see Tyler Ankrum make the 2023 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series playoffs in 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories of today's episode, as we're talking about Travis Pastrana. As Travis Pastrana is expected to drive in the 2023 Daytona 500 with 2311 Racing. This course is first reported by Jordan Bianchi. We did a little bit of video talking about this. An announcement, according to Bob Pockers, is expected here tomorrow. Not sure what time that announcement is exactly going to be, but announcement is expected tomorrow, and when we do have that, we'll probably cover that more on this channel. This is absolutely huge. There's a lot of questions to be asked about this. Number one, what sponsor will Travis Pastrana have for the 2023 Daytona 500? That, I think, will be Black Rifle Coffee. There's more photos that have been surfacing showing that he has a Black Rifle Coffee on his jacket because he lost, I think, the Red Bull and other sponsorships he's kind of had recently, and he'll likely have Black Rifle Coffee as a sponsor. Now, for those who don't know who Travis Pastrana is a legendary, basically, rally racer. He's done a lot of stuff in the Action Express racing and all that kind of stuff. But one thing about Travis is he has raced in NASCAR in the past. Travis Pastrana has competed in a lot of Xfinity Series and a couple Truck Series races as well. Albeit those performances in those races were not the greatest. He only scored 4 top 10 finishes and 1 pole, and that actually came at a super speed race at Talladega because Roush Yates' engines were really, really fast in those races back in 2013, and their Roush Yates engine program is still really good to this day. Now, Travis Pastrana coming back to NASCAR is a really, really big shock and a surprise, and for the Daytona 500 in a third 2311 racing car, which I think is really, really huge for the sport. You've got the potential to have 3 different drivers racing against each other in maybe the same duel. You have potential of having not only Julio Castroneves, who could drive for the Money Team or Trackhouse's Project 91 car, Jimmy Johnson will be driving the Legacy Motor Club car, and Travis Pastrana, who will be in a third 2311 car. A couple of questions I have is, one, what will the number be? I would think it'll either be maybe the 32 or the 67, or maybe they get the 33 potentially from Team Penske or RCR, since that 33 car is 33 days of the Daytona 500, so that could be a really big possible option. The second likely goal thing is, what are the goals for Travis Pastrana in this race? Well, simply the goal is to make the Daytona 500. I think Travis Pastrana, because since it's a wide open at Daytona, I think Travis Pastrana, and plus with experience as well, Travis Pastrana, I think, has a really good chance to make it on the Wednesday. Because I think 2311 is going to give him a very fast piece. If he doesn't get it on time trials and get it on speed, though, the Daytona 500 duel is going to be really, really exciting. But he'll have help from the Toyota teams, and he'll have help from basically all of his teammates at 2311 and the Toyota teams as well. And I think a lot of people are going to try to help Travis get into the field. I think it's absolutely huge you got a driver like Travis Pastrana coming back to NASCAR and racing. We all thought it was going to be Carl Edwards, though, because we looked at the back of his head, and we all thought, oh, that was Carl Edwards who was going to come back. And I think we all really want Carl Edwards, let's be honest, to make a return to the sport. But I think it's really awesome that a driver like Travis Pastrana is going to drive in 2023. And for 2311 Racing, which is a really competitive organization. There's other questions to be asked is about 2311 Racing and their expansion. What other drivers could drive this car? Obviously, I think Kurt Busch, if he's medically cleared, will make select starts. Kurt Busch has said publicly that if he is medically cleared to race, that he will race at some point in select races. He's targeting maybe Watkins Glen and Darlington. Maybe some of the drivers in the lower series, like a Sammy Smith, perhaps gets an opportunity, or like maybe John Hunter Nemechek makes select starts for the team. Maybe they'll be like the Project 91 car that Trackhouse currently has, where they'll bring a lot of different drivers in. That also could be a really big possible option as well for that team. Regardless, though, I think it's huge for the sport. You have a driver like Travis Pastrana coming in, and it feels like we're getting much, much closer now to Daytona 500, which is really, really exciting. And to see a driver like Travis Pastrana actually come into the sport and race in NASCAR, I think is absolutely huge and absolutely massive for NASCAR in general. So I'm really excited about this as a fan. I really hope Travis Pastrana can make his way into the show, and hopefully Travis Pastrana is able to qualify his way into the 2023 Daytona 500 with 2311 Racing. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Busch. As Kyle Busch has a new sponsor for 2023. The new sponsor is Netspend. Netspend is going to sponsor Kyle Busch in multiple races in the 2023 season, including at Circuit of the Americas. Since, of course, Netspend is based in Austin, Texas, they will sponsor Kyle Busch at Circuit of the Americas. That will be the first race that they are going to sponsor Kyle Busch. First thing, this car I absolutely love. I love the orange, and I love the blue streaks across the car. I think those absolutely look incredible, and this car looks amazing. This is definitely so far one of my favorite Kyle Busch paint schemes that I have seen so far, because he's had a lot of really good paint schemes so far this year, but I think this is definitely one of my favorite Kyle Busch paint schemes so far this year. Another big thing is the sponsorship talk, because remember, one of the big reasons why Kyle Busch left Joe Gibbs Racing is the fact he couldn't find sponsorship and funding. He's going to RCR, and yes, four of those sponsors that Kyle Busch has are Richards Racing sponsors, that being Alsco, BetMGM, Cheddar's, and other companies that have worked with Kyle Busch. But now you've got a new company coming in Netspend. Now, the big question is how many races are they going to sponsor? It's just a multi-race deal. I probably think around 2 to 5 races. But this does make Joe Gibbs Racing, in a sense, kind of look really, really bad. They weren't able to find Kyle Busch a sponsor. And to be fair, Joe Gibbs Racing, they want that big sponsorship for funding, like FedEx, where they sponsor a whole season, or with of course, Martin Truex Jr., Bass Pro Shots sponsoring a majority of the season. That's what they really, really want. And they did have Oracle ready for Kyle Busch to have for 2023, but that unfortunately fell through, and that's why Kyle Busch left the team. But it does make Joe Gibbs Racing look bad. In Monster Energy, it's unclear if Ty Gibbs and Monster Energy is going to sponsor Kyle Busch for a lot of races. That's one thing we don't, not Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs. We don't know how many races they are going to technically sponsor for the season. But going back to this, it does make JGR look really, really bad. And Joe Gibbs Racing is going to be in a little bit of trouble because FedEx's future is kind of in question too. There's a lot of talks FedEx might leave Joe Gibbs Racing, though I think they might be able to find a deal and get a deal done. There's talk that FedEx could leave NASCAR in general and Joe Gibbs Racing in general, which I think a lot of us don't really want to happen, and we want FedEx to return. There's a chance they get a little bit of a less deal, but will they take that less of a deal? That's one thing to watch going into the season. But going back to this whole thing, Kyle Busch is going to have a lot of basically going to a new team. It's a new breath of fresh air, and I think Kyle Busch really needed this. And going into this year, I really think Kyle Busch is going to be hungry and dangerous. And when Kyle Busch isn't hungry and dangerous, is very hungry on the racetrack and wants to be really, really strong, he is dangerous on the racetrack. Every time Kyle Busch has something to prove and wants to prove something, he performs great. Remember, he went over to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2008 in an 18 car that was in shambles and wins 8 races the first year he's in that car. He comes back from his injury in 2015, goes on to win 5 races, and wins the championship. In 2019, he got 5 victories, basically winning the championship race and proved that he still has it. And Kyle Busch, I think this year is going to be a legitimate championship contender with Richard Childress Racing. He is going to be a championship threat. I think he will make the championship 4. And I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a lot of wins. I think he will get around 3 to 4 wins, 2 or 3 wins this year, but I think he'll be a championship threat because the field is still going to be really extremely competitive this year. But I think he is going to have his best year since his championship year in 2019. He's going to be a championship threat. That 8 car looked really good last year with Tyler Reddick, and I think once again in 2023, he is going to be a really, really strong. And I think he's going to be a championship threat. He's going to be fun to watch. The other big question is what other companies could sponsor Kyle Busch this year. Hot Wheels maybe comes into play. Maybe Hot Wheels sponsors. Maybe Realtree sponsors. That could be a possibility that those companies do sponsor because Realtree does have an association with Childress Racing. And also Hot Wheels, they've sponsored RCR's number 8 car in the past. In fact, I think they sponsored Tyler Reddick last year in 2022. But it's really great to see that Kyle Busch does have a new sponsor going into the year, bringing Netspend in. I think it's absolutely huge for that team. I think it's really huge to bring that company in. And they're kind of a big company. They've been around for many, many years, since 1999. They've been around for nearly a quarter of a century. It's great for the sport in general to have a new company come in. Like I said, I don't think Netspend has ever been in the sport before. And I think it's just great to see a new company come in and have that company coming in. But like I said, Joe Gibbs Racing kind of looking bad right now. The sponsorship of the team's in question, but again, you're going to have a lot of companies that are leaving NASCAR potentially. You've got Focus Factor that's kind of getting out of the sport. Sounds like Kohler's future is kind of in question. You got other companies because of the economy and stuff. You got a lot of companies that futures are kind of in question currently at the moment. That being said, though, it is great to see once again, though, that you've got a new sponsor coming into the sport. I think it's absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing, and glad to see that Netspend is going to be coming in and sponsor Kyle Busch this season. I think it is really great for the sport that we got a new company coming into the sport here in 2023. We'll see how many races they do officially decide to sponsor throughout the season. So, that is for today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, notifications on so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links description below that, and comment below your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about Kyle Busch getting some new sponsors for 2023? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Travis Pastrana entering the 2023 Daytona 500 with 2311 Racing? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to be having that breaking news report when it does officially get announced that Travis Pastrana will be driving for 2311 Racing. Wednesday, there should be also a NASCAR news video, and there's going to be NASCAR news throughout the week. And if there's any major breaking news stories that break throughout the week, we'll be covering that on the channel here every single day as we get you guys really close to the start of 2023. And we've also got some pretty special content that's going to be coming out as we get close to the start of the 2023 season. So stand by for that. A lot of great content on the way. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.